My son said, "Dad, you should downsize." That was the night I realized I'd raised a man who thought power was inherited, not earned. I turned 68 last January. A strange age, old enough for people to assume you're slow, yet young enough to still hear every condescending note in their voices. My joints ache, my eyes need stronger glasses, but my mind is sharper than ever. Age hasn't softened me. Grief has honed me. Losing Margaret 3 years ago did that. She was the gentle one. I am what was left behind, quieter, colder, and far harder to deceive. The evening it began, the unraveling, the revelation, was a Thursday in late February. February 22nd, to be exact 07:03 p.m. I remember, because the wall clock in Mark's dining room ticks like a nervous woodpecker, and Vanessa never replaces the batteries before they start to die. I've been invited for a casual family dinner, which in their household means takeout served on expensive plates. The dining room was aggressively modern, steel gray walls, a polished marble table big enough for a boardroom, chairs that cost more than my first house, but were somehow less comfortable than airport seating. Vanessa said minimalism was fashionable. I said minimalism was uncomfortable. She laughed. I didn't. Mark was already seated when I arrived, scrolling his phone with one hand, swirling a glass of Cabernet with the other. Hair perfectly styled, tie loosened just enough to suggest importance. He looked like a man performing success for an invisible audience. "Dad, you made it," he said without looking up. I was invited. I answered, taking my seat. Vanessa slid a plate in front of me. Seared salmon, quinoa, some green thing that tasted like regret. She smiled thinly. "Hope this isn't too rich for your digestion." "My digestion is fine," I said. "Your cooking is what worries me." She didn't laugh. "Fine." Humor died in that house long before Margaret died in mine. Dinner droned on. Small talk, meaningless talk, talk that floats without substance. Mark complained about supply chain issues. Vanessa bragged about yoga. The twins argued about who got more screen time. I chewed my salmon and wondered why I'd come. Then it happened. Not with drama, not with build-up, just a casual remark, tossed across the table like a napkin. "You know, Dad," Mark said, sipping his wine, "maybe it's time you downsized." I paused mid-bite. "Downsize what?" "Your office." He waved his fork dismissively. "You don't need 600 square feet for whatever it is you still do. It's outdated, inefficient." I set the fork down carefully. I founded Brantford Logistics. That office has been mine since the beginning. "And it's time to modernize," he said, the way one might speak to a child refusing to share toys. "Besides, we're thinking of remodeling the floor. A smaller office would make you more accessible." "Accessible to whom?" I asked. Vanessa jumped in casually. "The younger staff. They feel intimidated talking to you in such a big space." Or, I said, "they feel intimidated because they're incompetent." Silence. Then Mark leaned back, smiling that tight corporate smile he had learned somewhere between an overpriced MBA program and an overpriced lifestyle. "Dad, listen. Nobody is saying step down. Just step back. Ease out of day-to-day operations. Let me handle things. Let me take the company forward." There it was. Not said explicitly. Not screamed. Soft. Smooth. Practiced. A gentle shove toward the door. I looked at my son, at the boy I once carried on my shoulders while balancing packing slips, at the young man I hired too early and promoted too fast, at the man who now believed my presence was a relic to be archived. "You want me out," I said. He didn't deny it. He just gave a sympathetic nod that made me want to laugh. "Dad, you've done enough." Done enough. Those words didn't hurt. They clarified. I folded my napkin, placed it neatly beside my untouched quinoa, and stood. "I'll think about your suggestion," I said. Mark smiled with relief, misunderstanding entirely. But as I walked to the door, taking my coat from the chrome hook that cost $300 for reasons I will never understand, I wasn't thinking about downsizing my office. I was thinking about downsizing something else, something much larger, something he never saw coming. And that was the night my plan began. I didn't go into the office the next morning. Instead, I sat at my small kitchen table, the oak one Margaret and I bought in 1989 when money was so tight we had to choose between a new table and replacing the broken washing machine. She convinced me to buy the table. Wood remembers, she'd said. She was right. That table has heard every argument, every dream, every plan. On that particular morning, it held my laptop, a lukewarm mug of black coffee, and a copy of our company's Q4 expense reports that Mark had emailed me 2 days earlier with an annoyingly chipper subject line. Dad, for your records, smiling face with smiling eyes. I stared at that emoji for a full 10 seconds before deleting it from the email. A man who uses smiley faces while hiding financial rot deserves what's coming. I scanned the report, page after page of numbers, some familiar, some suspiciously bloated. $14,200, client entertainment. $22,000, conference flights and lodging. No conference listed, of course. $7,850, brand rejuvenation, concept work. Brand rejuvenation. I knew exactly what that meant. Vanessa's friend Teresa, the creative consultant, whose actual job was drinking white wine and making PowerPoint slides with pastel fonts. The room felt smaller with each page I turned. Not because of my apartment, which is small, 1 bedroom, modest, quiet, but because of the growing truth closing in on me. Mark wasn't just incompetent. He was careless. Careless with money. Careless with power. Careless with legacy. My legacy. Around 11 a.m., I took out the old binder kept under the kitchen sink, the one labeled Founding Documents. Margaret had decorated the cover with cheap floral stickers from a craft store back in the 90s. She loved organization. She believed chaos attracted the wrong kinds of people. Again, she was right. Inside the binder lay our original Articles of Incorporation, 1983, the first investor agreements, the early warehouse lease contracts, and more importantly, the shareholder structure. When Mark joined the company officially at 29, he assumed, loudly, that one day he would inherit everything. He assumed it so strongly he never bothered to ask how the shares were arranged. I flipped to the relevant page. James Branford, 62%. Harold Finch, 14%. Founding Partners Trust, 24%. Mark owned exactly 0%. His salary was generous, yes. His title impressive. His office, the one he wanted to replace mine with, spacious. But legally, structurally, financially, he had as much controlling power as the janitor. I sipped my coffee and let that truth warm me from the inside. At noon, I drove to the office. Not to confront Mark. Not yet. But to observe. When I entered the lobby, the young receptionist, the one who always had headphones crooked under her hair, gave me a nervous smile. "Morning, Mr. Branford." "Morning," I said. "You look worried." Her eyes darted to the elevators. Mark said this morning that you might be retiring soon. So he told us to prepare for changes." Retiring. Preparing for changes. In his mind, it was already done. "Is that so?" I asked. She nodded quickly, as if afraid she'd said too much. I stepped into the elevator, pressed 6, and watched the doors glide shut with a whisper. The mirrored wall reflected my face. Older, yes, lined, gray-haired, but not defeated. When I reached the executive floor, the first thing I saw was a stack of boxes outside my office door. My boxes, labeled with fluorescent stickers that read, "Temp storage, move." Move. Move where? Into the broom closet Mark had mentioned? Into the corner cubicle the interns used? A surge of heat rose in my chest, but my voice remained steady when he finally appeared. Mark walked toward me down the hallway, sleeves rolled up, holding a Starbucks cup like a trophy. His smile was bright enough to power the whole building. "Dad, good timing. We're starting the transition." Just easing you into a more focused role. Focused, I repeated. Yeah. He gestured broadly like a motivational speaker. You know, advisory, legacy guidance. You'll still be involved. We just need to optimize. Optimize. Downsize. Modernize. The language of someone who wants power, but lacks the backbone to say it directly. Mark, I said, did you order my office to be packed? Temporarily, he said, raising both hands in faux innocence. Nothing dramatic. You can't take these things personally. I stepped closer. I built this company, and I'm trying to take it forward. By removing me? I asked. He chuckled lightly. Dad, you're not being removed. You're being refocused. You don't understand the new demands of executive work. It's different from your era. My era. The way he said era, like I belonged in a museum beside rotary phones and black and white TVs. I said nothing. Silence is a weapon people underestimate. Mark clapped me on the shoulder. Trust me, you'll thank me in 6 months. No, he would thank me, or rather, curse me, far sooner. As I walked back to the elevator, passing the boxes labeled with my name, a strange calm washed over me. Mark believed he was orchestrating a transition. He had no idea the transition had already begun. Not his, mine. And when it was complete, he would discover something unpleasant. You cannot push out a man who still holds the keys. And I held every key. The following Monday, I arrived at the office an hour earlier than usual. The sun hadn't fully risen. The streets were still wet from night rain, reflecting strips of pink and gray like smeared watercolors. I used my old key card, the one Mark kept forgetting to deactivate, and as expected, it still worked. He forgets many things, but never the things that matter to him. The lobby was empty, silent except for the hum of the fluorescent lights. That silence felt like opportunity. You can read a company during the quiet hours, the clutter on desks, the sticky notes on monitors, the panic scribbled in planners. Noise hides dysfunction. Silence reveals it. I took the elevator to the 6th floor. My boxed-up belongings still sat neatly outside my old office door, like a makeshift grave marker. I ignored them. Instead, I entered conference room 3A. Harold was already there, as I knew he would be. Punctuality is the only addiction he's ever had. He looked up from his leather briefcase. I thought you'd call first. I wanted to see the state of things myself. He chuckled. Judging by those boxes, I imagine the state is hostile. Naive. I corrected. Hostile requires competence. Harold pushed a folder toward me. I pulled Mark's approvals from the last 18 months. Not the sanitized ones he sends you. The real ledgers. I opened the folder, and truth spilled out like mud. A $48,000 training retreat at a Napa Vineyard. A $17,200 invoice labeled talent consultancy. Teresa again. A recurring monthly payment of $6,500 to a brand strategist. Private car service bills. Hotel charges. Unexplained vendor fees. Jesus Christ, I muttered. This isn't the worst of it, Harold said. Look at this. He handed me another sheet. A projected budget Mark submitted for Q3. It included a $120,000 marketing overhaul, a $75,000 executive leadership development program, and, most insulting of all, a proposed salary increase for himself, plus 18%. I felt something click inside me. Not anger. Something cleaner. Sharper. He's bleeding us, I said quietly. Harold nodded. And he's sloppy. I leaned back, folding my arms. Why didn't the board push back? They didn't see the details. He presents summaries. Oversimplified garbage. Half the board doesn't even read the attachments. I rubbed the bridge of my nose. This is my fault. Yes, Harold said bluntly. You shielded him from consequences his entire life. Now he thinks he's untouchable. Honesty like that is why Harold is still in my life. So what are you going to do? He asked. I didn't answer immediately. Instead, I reached for the binder of founding documents, the one I brought with me, tucked under my arm like a weapon. First, I said, we verify his access level. I want to know exactly what he has control over. Already checked, Harold replied, tapping another sheet. He has no authority to sign transfers above $25,000. Not without your approval. And no structural decision can be finalized without a majority board vote. I nodded. Good. Second, I continued. We schedule a board meeting. Harold raised an eyebrow. The quarterly meeting is in 3 weeks. I know. I closed the binder. That's perfect. Harold gave a slow, knowing smile. You're planning something. I'm planning clarity, I said. Mark wants to modernize leadership. Fine. Let's modernize. He leaned back. And what role do you see him in afterward? I took a long breath, looked at the floor, then the ceiling, then finally at Harold. None. Harold nodded, as if confirming something he'd suspected for years. Then he said something that stuck with me long after the meeting ended. James, this will break him. I shook my head. No, life will break him. I'm just stopping him from breaking the company first. Later that afternoon, when the office buzzed with noise again, I walked the floor, slowly, deliberately. People watched me with cautious expressions, the kind reserved for someone rumored to be on his way out. One young analyst, Mia, bright girl, overworked, underpaid, hesitated before speaking. Mr. Branford, is it true you're, retiring? I smiled gently. Is that what they're saying? Well, Mark said changes were coming, and you'd be stepping aside soon. Did he? I asked. She nodded. Tell me, Mia, I said, leaning in slightly. Do you prefer working under a leader who built this company, or one who burns its money on wine and consultants? Her eyes widened. Then she stifled a laugh. Sir, I didn't say anything. Neither did I. When she walked away, I saw her grin behind the cubicles. Word travels fast in an office, but truth travels faster. That night, standing in the parking lot under the yellow glow of streetlights, I felt something shift in my chest. A decision finally landing. I unlocked my car, slid behind the wheel, and stared at the dark building. Mark believed he was preparing for my exit. But in 3 weeks, the board would see the truth. 3 weeks before the first strike. 3 weeks before Mark learned a rule he'd forgotten. Power isn't inherited. Power is earned. And I'd earned every inch of mine. The morning of the quarterly meeting felt uncomfortably calm. The kind of calm a man feels before a storm he spent years pretending wouldn't come. March 14th, 9:00 a.m. sharp. Conference room A. I arrived early, deliberately early, carrying nothing but a leather folder and a travel mug of black coffee. Margaret bought me that mug for my 60th birthday. Stainless steel, dented on the side from when I accidentally dropped it during a warehouse inspection. I kept it because some objects are more honest than people. The conference room was empty except for the cleaning crew finishing their rounds. The long glass table gleamed under the overhead lights. 12 chairs on each side. One at the head. My chair. The one Mark had been eyeing like a crow-eyes roadkill. I placed my folder neatly in front of it and waited. One by one, the board members filtered in. Harold first, then Sophia, finance, then 2 of the shareholders from the founding trust. All of them greeted me quietly, cautiously. That kind of caution meant only one thing. Mark had been talking. They took their seats. At 8:57 a.m., Mark strode into the room like he was entering a TED Talk. He wore a tailored navy suit, hair overly gelled, expression calculated. He looked every bit the polished executive he believed himself to be. Confident, invincible, entitled. Good morning, he said loudly, placing a sleek silver laptop at the head of the table. He didn't even look at my folder sitting there. Didn't even acknowledge me. He simply pulled the chair out, sat, and logged into his laptop. Harold raised one eyebrow. Sophia shot me a glance. I stepped behind Mark's seat and spoke calmly. That's my chair. He froze mid-keystroke. The room went silent. Mark turned slowly, wearing a smile so thin it could be used as dental floss. "Dad, I thought we discussed transitioning." "We discussed nothing," I said. "You talked. I listened. That's not a discussion." He gave a little dismissive laugh. "Dad, don't make this dramatic." "I'm not," I said, "but you're in my seat. Move." For a moment, I saw the boy he used to be, the boy who'd freeze when he broke a vase in the living room. Then the mask returned. He stood abruptly, grabbed his laptop, and slid 3 seats down the table. I took my rightful place. At 9:00 a.m. sharp, I opened the meeting. "Let's begin." Mark jumped in before I could say the next sentence. "I'll start," he said, clicking his laptop and projecting his slideshow onto the large screen. "We've prepared an exciting proposal for Q3 leadership restructuring." "Sit down," I said. My voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Mark blinked rapidly, confused. "Dad, I'm presenting the operational roadmap." "Sit down." This time, the words landed differently, with weight, with truth, with history behind them. Murmurs fluttered around the table. Slowly, painfully slowly, Mark lowered himself into his chair. I slid a stack of printed packets across the table to each board member. Harold assisted, distributing copies silently. "What is this?" Mark demanded, grabbing one with irritation. "Your performance review," I said. "The real one, not the version you emailed me." He flipped through the pages, his face draining of color with each sheet. The recurring personal charges, the inflated invoices, the fabricated consultant fees, the travel records not matching any actual conferences, the proof that his strategic expenses were nothing but vanity projects and personal indulgences. This is taken out of context," he stammered. "No," I said. "This is context." Harold cleared his throat. "The board has already reviewed all financial evidence. Today's vote is simply procedural." Mark looked around the table with desperation, but found no allies. Even the trust representatives, usually indifferent, were reading the documents with tight lips and furrowed brows. "Dad," Mark whispered, leaning forward, eyes wide. "Please don't do this." "It's not me doing this," I said. "It's you." A board member, Ms. Patel, spoke firmly. "Mr. Branford, these discrepancies are significant, and the financial risks you've taken." "I was trying to grow the company," he exploded. "No," I said calmly. "You were trying to grow your lifestyle." The room went dead quiet. I continued, flipping to the final page of the packet. "As founder and majority shareholder, I motion for a vote of no confidence in Mark Branford as Chief Operating Officer." Mark's mouth fell open. "Dad, you're firing me?" "I'm relieving you," I corrected. "Relieving you before you bury us." Harold placed a gavel on the table. All in favor. Hands went up. 1, 2, 5, 9, 12. Even the 2 board members Mark assumed were loyal raised their hands, slowly, almost apologetically. "All opposed?" Harold asked. Only one hand rose. Mark's. The gavel struck. "Motion passes," Harold declared. Just like that. It was done. Mark shot to his feet, knocking over his chair. "This is a coup. This is a betrayal." "No," I said softly, standing too. "This is accountability." "You can't do this to me," he shouted. His voice cracked, a child's voice trapped in a man's throat. "I'm your son, and I'm your father," I said quietly. "Not your hostage." He stared at me, chest heaving, face flushed. "Fine," he spat. "If I'm out, I'll take half the company with me." "You can't," I said. "Oh, watch me," he hissed. I leaned forward, meeting his eyes. "You don't own a single share." His entire body froze. "What?" he whispered. "You don't own anything," I repeated. "You've never owned anything." "I kept full equity because I knew this day might come." Mark looked physically ill. "I carried you into this company," I said. "I gave you a title you didn't earn. I sheltered you, protected you, handed you responsibility long before you were ready. His eyes filled with horror. And today I took it back. The room remained silent as Mark grabbed his laptop, stormed out, and slammed the glass door so hard it trembled against the hinges. We all waited until the echo died. Then Harold exhaled and leaned toward me. "Well," he said, "that could have gone worse." I sipped my coffee. "No," I said, "that went exactly as it needed to." And for the first time in months, maybe years, my chest felt light. The storm had broken. But the aftermath was only beginning. Mark didn't show up to the office the next day, or the day after that. On Monday morning, his assistant placed a resignation letter on my desk and signed, formatted in a hurry, with typos Mark would never normally allow. "I hereby resign from all managerial duties effective immediately," it read. The phrasing alone told me he'd written it in anger, maybe past midnight, probably with a whiskey glass half full and self-pity overflowing. I folded the letter, placed it in a drawer, and closed it. It wasn't worth reading twice. The office itself had a different pulse, steadier, quieter. People walked with less tension, spoke without watching the glass walls nervously, laughed a little too loudly, the kind of relief laughter that had been suppressed for months. Even the receptionist looked brighter. "Morning, Mr. Branford," she said, almost cheerfully. "Morning. Oh, I'm going to tell you." She leaned forward conspiratorially. "Mark came by on Saturday. He tried his badge, but it didn't work. He got really upset. Security was instructed to revoke his access." I said simply. "I know." She bit her lip, fighting a smile. "He wasn't happy about that." I imagine not. There was no pleasure in hearing it, but there was justice. Around noon, I received a call for Vanessa. Not a friendly call, the kind wives make when they haven't eaten lunch yet and their blood sugar is low, but their entitlement is high. "James," she began without greeting, "we need to talk." "About what?" Her voice tightened, as if she were restraining herself from shouting. "About what you did to Mark." "I didn't do anything to Mark," I said calmly. "The board did." "With your influence," she snapped. "With your manipulation." I sipped my coffee. "Vanessa, are you saying Mark's financial misconduct doesn't matter?" "Mistakes happen," she barked. "He's under a lot of pressure. He's been carrying this company." I laughed. Actually laughed. It startled her. "Carrying the company?" I said. "He's been draining it." "You're unbelievable," she hissed. "Do you know how humiliated he is? How badly he feels right now?" "I imagine," I said. "It's about the same as I felt seeing my office in cardboard boxes." That shut her up for a moment. Then the real reason for her call surfaced, the panic behind the anger. "We have bills, James. Big bills. The house, the kids' tuition, the landscaping contract, the car leases. Those are your bills," I said. "Not the company's. And certainly not mine. You supported us before. A mistake I won't repeat." Her tone turned cold, clipped. "You owe him something." "I owe him nothing," I said. "He owed me integrity and responsibility. He offered neither." She inhaled sharply, as if preparing to unleash another wave of accusations. I ended the call. 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a text from Mark. "You've destroyed my career. We're not done." I stared at the message for a while, letting each word settle. Then I typed, "Grow up," and closed the phone. That evening, I returned to my apartment, the same modest place with the clicking stove and the dented refrigerator that hums like a weary baritone. The place felt different, lighter, as if some invisible weight had been removed from the air. I made myself dinner, scrambled eggs, a slice of sourdough bread, and cherry tomatoes. The kind of meal Margaret used to make when we were too tired to cook, but too proud to order takeout. I ate slowly, thinking about the meeting, about the board, about the years of decisions that had led us here. When I sat in my armchair, the ugly brown one that had survived 2 moves and a decade of television dinners, I picked up the remote, then set it down. I wasn't in the mood for noise. Instead, I opened my email. 24 messages awaited me from employees. Some formal, some heartfelt, some cautiously supportive. One from Mia, the analyst. Thank you for protecting the company. It's been rough under Mark. People won't say it out loud, but we're relieved. Another from a warehouse manager I'd known since he was 19. Sir, we heard what happened. If you need anything, you have us. I read them all slowly. The world assumes older men lose relevance. That time makes them invisible. But I was never invisible. I was watching, listening, waiting for the right moment to correct the course. And I had corrected it. 3 days later, on Thursday, the storm began. I was reviewing quarterly projections when HR knocked on my door. Mr. Branford, the director said nervously, Mark is downstairs in the lobby, demanding a meeting. Is security aware? Yes. They're holding him at the front desk. He's agitated. Of course he was. Tell security to keep him there, I said. But sir, indefinitely. No exceptions. She hesitated. And if he tries to force his way up, then they should demonstrate why we have security. She nodded and left. Through the glass walls of my office, I saw employees exchanging glances. The news would spread. It always does. And I knew exactly how Mark would frame it in his head. His father had betrayed him. His father had humiliated him. His father had abandoned him. But this wasn't betrayal. It was responsibility. That night, when I returned home, I found a letter shoved under my door. My name written in sloppy handwriting. I opened it. Inside, one line. We're going to fix this, one way or another. Mark. A threat disguised as determination. Or determination disguised as a threat. The line between the two had always been blurry with him. I folded the note, placed it in a drawer, and sat at my table again. That sturdy oak table that had outlived love, age, and disappointment. Mark thought the worst was behind him. He didn't know it yet. But part of me suspected the worst, or the best, depending on how you see justice, had not even begun. The cafe was half empty when I arrived. A quiet place on Maple Avenue. Old wooden tables, brass lamps, the smell of burnt espresso that somehow felt comforting. Margaret and I used to come here on cold mornings, back when the world seemed simpler and Mark still adored us instead of trying to manage us. He'd texted me earlier. We need to meet. Today, 4 p.m. Cafe Verona. Come alone. That last part made me smile, as if I needed backup. I walked in at 3:58 p.m. Mark was already there, agitated, tapping his foot, wearing the same suit jacket from the board meeting, but noticeably more wrinkled. He lost weight, or pride, possibly both. He didn't stand when I approached, just stared at me with eyes that were too tired for a man his age. I sat across from him. Dad, he said immediately, before you say anything, you ruined me. Straight to the point. I leaned back, folding my hands. Coffee first. I'm not here for coffee. Then we have different expectations. I signaled to the barista an order of black coffee. Mark didn't order anything. His fingers drummed the table in frantic patterns. Dad, I'm serious, he said. You cost me everything. My job, my reputation. I didn't cost you anything, I said. You did. He clenched his jaw. This isn't my fault. It is, I said evenly. Every part of it. You blindsided me. I warned you. You ambushed me. You exposed yourself. You're my father, he finally shouted, loud enough that 2 people at neighboring tables turned. Lower your voice, I said. You're embarrassing yourself. He swallowed, shoulders trembling as he tried to hold himself together. I needed that job, he said, softer now. I built a life around it. A house. The kids' school. The cars. I know, I said. I paid for half of it. And now I might lose everything. Maybe, I said. But that's between you and your bills. Not you and me. He stared at me. Really stared. As if seeing me for the first time. You're supposed to help me, he whispered. I did, I said. For years. More than I should have. More than was healthy. He looked down at the table. His voice cracked. I was trying to do the right thing, he said. I was trying to prove myself. You proved something, I said. Just not what you intended. He flinched. A small, involuntary jerk. The kind a man makes when someone pokes a wound he didn't know was visible. I took a sip of my coffee. Mark leaned forward suddenly, desperation replacing anger. Dad, listen. I'm sorry. I messed up. Okay. I'll admit that. But you can fix this. You can reinstate me. Give me a probation period or something. Or create a new role. I just need a title. Something to keep me afloat until... No, I said. His mouth stayed open for a second, like a broken hinge. No, he repeated. Dad, please, I'm asking you. I know, I said. And I'm saying no. But I'm your son. Yes, I said slowly. And that's the tragedy here. He blinked. Confusion. Pain. Anger. It all flickered through him like faulty wiring. I don't understand, he whispered. I know, I said. That's the problem. I leaned forward, elbows on the table, voice low and steady. You forgot who signed your paychecks. He closed his eyes. And worse, I continued, you forgot why I signed them. He looked at me again, really looked, and I saw a flash of something human, raw, unguarded. Something I hadn't seen since he was 12 and broke his wrist falling off his bike, crying out from pain but shame. You think I don't know I disappointed you? He asked, voice barely audible. You think I don't know you wanted me to be better? I didn't want perfect, I said. I wanted honest. He looked down again. A long silence stretched between us. Not hostile, not angry, just exhausted. Finally, I spoke. You can either rebuild your life from here, or keep blaming me for the ruins. That choice is yours. But my part in this is finished. He breathed in shakily. So that's it. Yes. You're cutting me off. No, I said. You cut yourself off. I'm just acknowledging it. He sat still for a long time. Longer than I expected. Then he nodded, once tightly, and stood up. Goodbye, Dad, he said. Goodbye, Mark. He walked out without looking back. He always expected me to chase him. I didn't. When the door closed behind him, the barista placed my receipt on the table. Next to it, she said a fresh biscotti. On the house, she said gently. Hard conversation. I smiled faintly. Necessary conversation. She nodded and walked away. I sat alone in that quiet cafe, the afternoon light drifting in through the big windows, dust motes floating like tiny ghosts. For the first time in years, I felt something I hadn't expected. Relief. Not joy. Not triumph. Just relief. A weight lifted. A cycle broken. A truth acknowledged. I finished my coffee, stood, and put on my coat. Outside, the air smelled like rain. As I walked home, slowly, steadily, one thought came to me, simple and clean. Sometimes the most merciful thing a father can do is let his son face the man he's become. And that, finally, was enough.